All right, so I'm here with Captain Nolan, or Kat for short, it's her first name. And we actually just got done with our ruck interview. It was actually a really good talk, got tons of footage, and I'm going to have to cut down for you guys. But this whole video is going to be about what it's like to be a female growing up in the infantry. What are some of the challenges that Kat faced? And then she's going to go into some advice and tips for anybody who's looking at doing the same thing as she did. All right, so let's go ahead and get that started. All right, so I'm out here with Captain Nolan, or Kat. Kat's her first name. She is a infantry officer, been in the Army for
4 years.
About 4 years now, okay. And we've known each other for a little while. I want to say it's coming up on maybe on or around 6 months. Gotten to know Kat a little bit. She's pretty high speed. Obviously, she went to IBOLC. She did Ranger School. She's got air assault, airborne. Spent some time in the 101st as a PL. But this video is going to be focused on what it's like for a female to be in today's Army, especially to be in the infantry, you know, a straight up combat role. What is it like for a female to be in a combat role? All right, so I'm going to shut up now for a second. I'm going to let Kat talk a little bit about herself and just give you a quick background about where she comes from and how she's got to where she is now as a captain in the infantry.
Yeah, so I grew up in Houston, Texas. I went to college at Texas A&M University, where I was in the ROTC program and the Corps of Cadets. Once I graduated from there, I was commissioned as an infantry officer, traveled to Fort Benning, Georgia, completed IBOLC training, had a lot of fun. That was probably one of my favorite times in my career, was going through the IBOLC pipeline. Following that, I had about a month and a half of their pre-ranger training program, and I went home for winter break, came back, immediately started Ranger School in January. So I was a winter ranger, graduated from Ranger School in April. Airborne training about 2 weeks after I finished Ranger School. PCS to Fort Campbell. At the time, there were only 3 posts that female infantry officers in my year group were actually able to go to. It was Fort Campbell, Fort Bliss, and Fort Carson. Got to my first unit, which was 3rd Brigade, 101st Rakkasans. Spent about 8 or 9 months as a platoon leader in 3rd Brigade, and then spent a lot of time on staff after that. I was in the S3 shop as a staff officer. Ended up PCSing here to Fort Bragg, where I completed CCC.
It sounds like a pretty traditional high-speed pathway for any infantry officer, right? Like, you kind of hit the marks as far as if you were an infantry officer. Those are the marks that you kind of want to hit during your career. For those of you that don't know, if you are an infantry officer, especially as PLs, and you don't have your Ranger tab, that's a straight up no-go. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on infantry officers to have their Ranger tab before they show up to their unit, and so, you know, Captain Nolan here, she was no exception. It was the same for you, right?
Yeah.
Same type of pressure.
Yep.
All right, so as you began looking into joining the Army, you ended up going the officer route, obviously, and you went to ROTC before you went to IBOLC and so on and so forth. Yep. Between that whole period, like once you committed yourself to joining the military, after that, what was the first memorable time for you where you noticed, okay, you know, this is more difficult for me, or this is different for me because I'm a female? How am I being treated differently? Have you had any of those sorts of experiences?
Yeah, I actually have a great example for this. So back in ROTC, I was in the Ranger Challenge program, and I loved all of the aspects of that program. Getting out, getting after it every morning for PT. We would go on these long rucks, do the obstacle course, a whole bunch, land navigation, super hua stud stuff. And I looked up to those guys who were my upperclassmen in that organization, and almost all of them wanted to join the infantry. At this time, I was super ignorant of the Army and what branches were and weren't open for females. I didn't know. And so I remember this one time where we had just gotten back from the Sandhurst competition. The general for the Corps of Cadets was going down the line, shaking our hands, asking us what we wanted to branch. All I knew is I had all of these guys that I looked up to, and they were all saying infantry or aviation or armor, like the cool guy branches. And got to me, And he's like, hey, what branch are you looking at going into? I was like, well, the infantry. It was so obvious to me, and everybody in the room like paused. They were all taken aback, and I wasn't expecting that at all. It was like you could hear a pin drop. And his face, there's a great picture of his face, just pure shock on this general's face. And he's looking into the camera, and I'm just laughing because, you know, I was kind of awkward and didn't know what I had just said. It wasn't until after that, someone came up to me immediately after the ceremony. It was like, hey, you know females can't go infantry, right? And so I was like,
was that true back then?
yeah.
Oh, that was still the case.
That
okay.
was still the case. So
she's just old.
yeah, so I was like, well, screw you. I'm gonna go infantry anyway.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it happen. And I just had to wait. There was talks going on. I think this was in 2013. There was talks going on about females going through Ranger School and then them opening up combat arms. So it wasn't until like 2015, 2016 when they finally opened all MOSs to females.
Right.
So
I remember that.
yeah, on that day, like that's when I changed my branch preferences. I remember that day very vividly because everyone came up to me like, did you hear? Did you hear? I'm like, yeah, I heard. I immediately went into the officer's office, changed my branch preferences, infantry #1, and
wow, see, that's like a whole different way to look at it too, because like that's interesting. That's pretty eye-opening because I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, there's like certain MOSs that everybody wants, and in ROTC, like as you're making your way through that and trying to become an officer, and the closer you get to commissioning, the more competitive those slots get, and it all depends on your performance during school and so on and so forth. But infantry is one of like the hardest ones to get regardless, right? So
yeah, everyone wants it.
Everybody wants, is at least in the officer world, everybody wants to go infantry. So it's really hard to get. You really have to be a top performer. I remember before I went infantry that was something that I didn't necessarily like have stress over, but I definitely like was very competitive about it. I really wanted to go in the infantry, but I didn't have that additional stress that Kat's talking about of dealing with whether or not I'm even going to be eligible or accepted into the branch. So that's like a whole different thing. You know, that's a whole different thing to be worrying about. It's pretty interesting.
It was the first time in my life that I'd ever been told that I couldn't do something because of my gender.
But so obviously you got through that.
Yeah.
And you got how did it feel when you did find out that you got picked up for infantry branch?
Definitely there was a state of like disbelief, but also kind of like the reality setting in all at once. It's like, okay, this is real now. I'm about to do something that not a lot of females have done yet. Like now I better be ready.
I imagine, because you're like super in shape now, you're like a CrossFit athlete and all that, and you're even wearing the CrossFit shirt right now, right?
Yeah, repping the gym.
That's cool. So were you really into fitness back then, or was this like another challenge for you, or how was that?
Yeah, I'm one of the very fortunate females that, well, really anybody who kind of was raised. So I was raised with sports growing up, whether it was soccer or swimming or track or cross country. Like I was always doing something physical growing up. The Ranger Challenge aspect kind of added a new sport for me, added ruck marching. That took a while to get used to, but I am very grateful for those very early rucking experiences because that really kind of set me up for success in the infantry world where we ruck a lot.
Yeah, that takes time to build up.
Yeah. So starting that really early on as a freshman kind of helped get that ball rolling as far as getting those legs under me, the rucking legs under me. So I have always been very physically fit. I'm in better shape now than I was when I went to Ranger School. So I wasn't in like peak physical condition prior to going to Ranger School. Like, was I in shape? Yeah, sure, for a female, but you know, could I have been in more shape? You know, of course, obviously. I wasn't doing all the CrossFit stuff back then. I was specifically honing my training in for rucking, and that's pretty much it.
So you got picked up for the infantry, shipped off to IBOLC, successfully got through IBOLC.
Yeah.
Which is already a pretty big gut check. I can tell you from experience that that's not like the easiest school to get through.
A lot of field time.
A lot of field time, like 80 or 90% of the time you're there. So you graduate IBOLIC and it's time to go to Ranger School, right? Can you enlighten us a little bit about how you were feeling about going to Ranger School? Because back then it was still extremely new for females to be going to the school, and what you did to prepare, and then how it was just going through the school in general.
Back then, only, I want to say, less than 10 females had actually passed Ranger School at that point, prior to me even stepping foot in the gates. So I knew that through my whole train-up process, and that was a really big mental challenge that I had to get over. Like, I knew there had been females that had done it, but it was so rare still. So I really had to like challenge myself and just continuously tell myself like this positive mindset. Be like, okay, I can be one of the ones. I can be one of the ones that pass. There's no reason why I wouldn't be able to pass this school. I've trained, you know, I'm capable. So it was a lot of this like positive mindset mentality, basically telling myself that I could do it. And that was a big part of my training, was having this belief. I tackled the one thing that scared me the most about Ranger School in my training. I was terrified of mountain phase. So I wasn't even really thinking about like the rest of it, like Derby phase or the PT test. I knew it was good on all of those things, but I was scared of mountain phase because I knew I come from Texas. Texas is flat, we don't have hills. So I hadn't done a lot of hill training, and I knew walking up hills with a heavy ruck hurt. So I found a hill, put on a really, really heavy ruck, and I would walk up it, and then I would kind of jog back down with the ruck on. I would take the ruck off, and I would sprint up that hill. I would jog back down, put the ruck back on. I just did that over and over and over again. I increased every week. I was doing that about 2 or 3 times a week. And I got to the point where my legs got stronger. I felt more confident. I had gotten after that area that I felt weakest on. After IBOLIC, to train for Ranger School was like their pre-Ranger program, which meant every week we had to run a 5 mile, and it was a MO or OML. I was running 5 miles like twice a week at a really, really fast pace. And I started to get plantar fasciitis in one of my feet. I didn't really have a lot of time to rehab that before I stepped in the gates of Ranger School. So I started Ranger School with plantar fasciitis in one foot and ended with plantar fasciitis in both feet. It got pretty bad towards the end. I could barely stand up without like having to grab onto a tree and just pull myself up in the morning. So physically, that was probably the most pain that I was in. I wasn't focusing enough on recovery in my train up. I was just pushing, and ended up hurting myself in the end. Kind of that overtraining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta watch out for that.
Yeah, I know. I was young and dumb.
But it didn't stop you.
No, I knew no matter how much pain I was in, I was gonna keep going forward. I got through the gate, passed all the PT tests. I did have to retest on push-ups, so that sucked. Definitely,
Yeah.
Definitely be good at push-ups. But the second time, got the push-ups, and then...
Real quick, what's your opinion on the push-up thing? Do you think that they're actually being fair when they do push-ups? Seriously, there's a lot of different opinions out there about that.
Those are some of the best push-ups I have done in my life. My chest and my chin had to touch the dirt for them to count a push-up.
All right.
So I just chin in the dirt, and push back up all the way locked out, hold it for a second, and back to chin in the dirt.
Super slow, super deliberate.
Yeah.
It's like the hardest, most perfect form push-ups
Yeah.
you will ever do. That's the only way you're gonna get through the push-up test.
Yeah, the first time I did it, I didn't get my chin all the way in the dirt, and he took 5 push-ups away from me, and I was 3 away from meeting that requirement. And I remember the whole time sitting in the recycle or the like retest area, I was like, 3 push-ups is not going to be the reason why I don't get my Ranger tab.
Do you feel like they test fairly knowing that it's that high of a standard?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you...
Yeah, it's fair. Like, you know the standard is super strict before you go. And one of the things that I did to train that was I would do push-ups on kettlebells so I could go all the way past like past 90 degrees. And really that like little extra bit, like that's what saved me on the push-ups. It's just doing that little extra past 90 degrees and then all the way back out.
Yeah, I like that. Okay,
yeah.
That's a good TTP to use. Yeah, that's a good tip for you guys out there. How was the rest of rap week for you? Rap
week was a blur, but it was also a lot of fun in a painful way. You get to do the Derby Queen, the obstacle course. It was very cold and the water on all the obstacle courses was almost iced over. You know, it was all stuff that I liked doing, like the reasons why I joined the infantry. Doing land navigation in the dark, running through the woods. The land nav was not a huge deal. I'd done land nav 1,000 times before and I felt well rehearsed. I knew all the skills. I did the ruck pretty quickly. Most people like to come in about 2 hours 59 minutes on the ruck. I picked up the pace just a little bit, came in around 2 hours and 47 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, you were actually probably one of the first ones to finish that ruck.
Yeah.
If I remember the time.
Yeah, I think there were about 7 or 8 people that were done before me. So I was moving for sure.
And during the entirety of rap week, like when you go back to the barracks and you sleep and all that stuff, and really just talking about the whole of Ranger School, you're not separated at any time from the males, right? Like everybody's together.
Yeah. So it was a little weird during Derby phase as far as like the bathrooms go. So they only have one set of bathrooms for each of the bays, and so we would have like female bathroom time. We'd go in like 10 minutes prior to the guys. We'd get about 10 minutes to shower and do all the things hygiene wise that we needed to do. We'd come out and the guys would get the bathroom the rest of the time. So we would just try to be really fast in the bathroom to be cognizant of the fact that like there's a lot of dudes that got to get through the bathroom, shower and all that stuff.
And they're all waiting on you.
Yeah. So
well, that's considerate of you to think that you should go fast.
Well,
I mean
mountain phase, they actually had like a section of the showers where there was a curtain, so we could, you know, section off one area of the showers and then the whole bathroom would stay open, so we could just run in, grab a shower, all the guys would still be showering on the other side, and we'd get done and then they'd have the whole showers back. And then in Florida, got to the point where like we just didn't care, so we just showered, shaved, and did everything together because like at that point you've been in it for so long, you don't really feel human anymore. A body is a body, and you just
because you're taking shits like 2 feet away from each other in the patrol base and stuff like that.
You spent 10 weeks out in the woods,
like
all doing the same stuff. You all smell horrible. Like, it doesn't matter.
I think it should be like that. You guys ever seen Starship Troopers? I think it should be just like that. But we're just not quite there yet. This is still a new concept. There's still a lot of like, you know, growing pains we have to work through, and it's not the norm yet. But do you think that it would be you know, so far-fetched or so far from reality that one day the military just is like that, like so integrated with the sexes that we're just like in the same showers together and it's not like nobody's even thinking about it that way?
I think we could get to it. I think the level of professionalism the organization would have to have would be extremely high, because that comes down to like respecting each other's space, even in what would be considered the most intimate settings. So as long as you have a group of professionals who's all there doing a job and getting shit done together as a unit, like it ultimately shouldn't matter.
And what are the things that you've seen that are great examples for why the integration should be happening in the first place?
So it was definitely new for my unit to see a female with a Ranger tab. I stood out and there was definitely a lot of attention there. So I think firstly, if we can get to that point where it's normal to just walk around and see females in combat arms, see females with Ranger tabs, like that's ultimately where I want to get to. All the soldiers in my platoon were amazing and didn't have a problem with me being there as a female. It didn't change anything in their mind from one platoon leader to the next. I actually got a lot of mentorship from my command sergeant major and my ops sergeant major. They were both extremely supportive of me being there. They wanted to see me do well.
being in the infantry already comes with its own unique experiences, and it gets really personal. I mean, you're like, you know, you're taking showers right next to each other, you sometimes even using just one shower spigot, one shower head. Sometimes you got to take, like I mentioned before, sometimes you got to take a shit like literally feet away from somebody else pulling security while you're in a patrol base. So obviously that's going to create challenges for a female in a historically male driven MOS, especially when it comes to, like, you know, using the wood line real quick, for example. What's your advice to the females out there going into combat MOS with dealing with something like that?
I think the specific question is, am I jealous of the male organ?
Yeah.
Quick answer, yes. You know, going through a patrol or doing some type of mission where you're out, you need to take a quick stop. Guys are gonna take that opportunity to relieve themselves, where as a female, it's...
Yeah, I mean, I just did it a few minutes ago back there.
Yeah, they can't just provide male and female facilities all the time. That's not the environment that we work in. It's about being adaptive as leaders and overcoming these challenges and kind of getting to that place where, you know, you can just be like, hey guys, like, I need to take a leak real quick. I'm gonna be behind that tree. And everybody else, like, take a knee, face out. It's only gonna be a second.
What's your take on when you just get that flat out, you know, response? Females shouldn't be in the infantry. Females shouldn't be in combat MOS. Like, what do you think about that?
I've never had anyone say it directly to my face that females shouldn't be in the infantry. I have seen it a lot online, on social media. I think to some degree I have kind of tried to block out all of those people saying that we shouldn't be here, because, like, it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, we are here, we are in the infantry, and that's not going to change. So where do we go from here, I think, is the question we should be asking ourselves. If we know that females are going to be here, and if we know that this is something that we're going to have to overcome as an organization and move beyond, how do we help physically prepare our soldiers to be the best at their job, irregardless of gender? What do those training programs look like? What do those leadership challenges look like? How do we help develop future leaders, regardless of gender, so that they are the best soldier, the best leader that we can put into a situation and have them succeed?
So as somebody who's got over 4 years of experience, you've got leadership experience, you've been to all these different schools where, like, you know, the gender integration has really been tested. And it was all during, like, the exact time when all that really started off. What would be your specific advice to any females out there that are trying to pursue a similar track as you, like trying to get into a combat MOS?
I think the first thing is to do a self-assessment and figure out if you're going to be the right fit for that kind of job, and if that kind of job is going to be something that's fulfilling to you. Make sure you're adequately preparing yourself physically. So get out there, either do CrossFit, do a proper train-up program. There are so many options out there, but make sure you're setting yourself up for success. You don't want to go out there and be constantly having to play catch-up. You want to go in to the organization and be value added from day one. Find a mentor. Reach out to people that are either already in, reach out to somebody that's got experience in the area that you're looking for. There are a lot of us out there. Most of us have experience mentoring or at least talking to females that are either interested in going to Ranger School or interested in going into one of these combat MOSs. I'm always open to talking to any female or any soldier who wants more information about what it's going to be like. So find a mentor, and that's kind of like that last critical piece that'll really set you up for success.
Looking back on it all the way from day one, is there anything that you would do differently up to this point in your career?
Honestly, no, because all those failures along the way led to some pretty great things. I can't be too disappointed with how things have turned out, and where I am today. The Army's brought some really good personal opportunities into my life, and I'm excited for what the future holds.
For a female that wants to go into the infantry, what are some quick fitness tips that you can give to them that they can start implementing right away?
Ruck. Get a ruck on your back. You know, it doesn't have to be the heaviest to start out with, but start getting your rucking feet ready. Break in a good pair of boots and just walk.
Actually, a lot of things that you've been saying, from what I'm hearing, I don't know about you guys out there, but it all sounds like very similar advice to what I would just give to anybody out there who is looking at joining the infantry or going to ranger school, this, that, and the other. It really doesn't sound any different, you know, and that's a good sign for the future as far as integration goes.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track.
I think we're on the right track. What did it feel like when you found out that you could put in for the infantry? Besides the excitement and everything, like what were some of the things you were nervous about? What were some of the things that you had to mentally overcome?
Honestly, the fact that it was so new. No one from my school had done it yet. There was kind of this expectation because I'd been telling people for so long that this is what I wanted to do. So there's this expectation to succeed. A lot of pressure, maybe. Kind of felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders a little bit. But that was partially like myself doing that as well. Like I have high expectations for myself. And then there was nervousness about not being physically prepared enough. I knew what I had done up to that point, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be enough.
But obviously you made it happen.
Yeah. I made it happen. I kept training. At that time when I found out, I was actually, you're going to hate me for this, I was training 3 times a day. I would do the Army workout in the morning with like Ranger Challenge or something like that, and then I would go lift, and then I would do some type of cardio or circuit workout in the afternoon as well. So just goes back into that overtraining.
Yeah, that sounds like overtraining to me.
Yeah, which I don't recommend doing.
It also sounds like you were really motivated.
Yeah, you can be motivated to the point where you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Though, and that's what I would definitely recommend for anyone that's looking to do this, is train smart.
Did you have any other females going through IBOLC with you?
Yes, there were 2 in my platoon. Both are really good friends of mine, really capable officers. Honestly, like in the infantry, I've made so many friends with like-minded women, and that's the awesome part. Is if you're looking for super motivated, super strong, outgoing females that you want to kind of link up with and be friends with, there's a lot of us out there in the infantry. You know, I'd share a foxhole with them any day.
Did you have any other females in your ranger class with you?
Yeah, actually I did. It varied depending on what phase I was in, but there was almost always at least one other female in that phase with me.
And how do you think they did? Did they pass?
Yeah. I graduated actually with one other girl. She's super awesome, mom of 2 when she graduated, so goes to show you, old ladies out there still crushing it. And then there were a couple females who graduated the class before me that I was in Florida phase with, and they were both awesome as well.
And regarding ranger school, I know you mentioned something about a like a Facebook page for females that are trying to go to ranger school, a support page.
Yeah, so there's actually a Facebook page out there, Ranger School candidates, where a bunch of females who are, you know, either have graduated Ranger School or those that are looking to graduate Ranger School kind of share some tips and tricks. There's a bunch of AARs in there from those of us that have passed, kind of sharing our experience, and then a lot of train-up programs that are in there as well, like how to improve your push-ups, how to improve your chin-ups. There's a lot of really great resources that are out there. So I'm always, more than willing to direct people to that page so they can kind of see what's out there for themselves and start making those connections prior to going to Ranger School.
And I'll drop a link for that in the description so you guys can go check out that page if you want. All right, so that was our what it's like to be a female in the infantry, in the Army. We covered some sensitive subjects today. Really tried to go into being able to provide some motivation and some direction for anybody who is out there wanting or even thinking about following the same career path as Kat here. Do you have any other final words of wisdom that you want to put out there to anybody?
Yeah, I'd say that everything that I've done in my career, while it is unique to me, it's 100% doable. This is something that you want to do and you're passionate about it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it.
And as always, if you guys have any other input or additional questions that you would like to have answered, go ahead and drop it in the comments for us. I'll get with Kat again and she can answer it for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. Besides that, I don't have anything else for you, and I'll see you on the next one.